Welcome to Senior Living Marketing Perspectives. I'm Debbie Howard with Senior Living Smart, and today I am joined by Nathan Jones, who is the CEO and founder of Dash Media. And Nathan's mission has been to change the negative perception surrounding aging and senior living through sharing authentic stories of older adults. So thanks for joining, Nathan.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Deb.
Yeah, I love your mission. Like, let's all change the perception, right? This is not grandma's nursing home.
And I think that you'll hear that story a lot when you talk to people in the industry, when you ask the question, like, how did you end up working in senior living? And most people had a pretty negative perception of what the industry and what senior living is. But when you do actually visit a community and spend time with the people, 99% of the time your entire viewpoint on senior living has changed.
Yeah, I saw that this week. We actually, end of last week, we visited a community, one of our clients, St. Mark Village in Palm Harbor, Florida. They were having a VIP event, and just talking to the residents, they just are so happy. They are just, it's just the happiest community. And it was funny because, of course, they had prospects coming to visit as well. And it was like the salespeople, I said, just sit down, just get out of the way between the relationship of your prospects and your residents, because they're doing it for you. The experiences that they're having living in this community that's exactly the perspective that people who are considering moving in really need to hear authentically from people who live it every day.
Yep, 100%. And I started Dash 3.5 years ago, and you started because I had this passion for storytelling and video production. But as you grow, and this probably better than anyone, as you grow, your roles shift. You have this, like, I want to do this, I love doing this. And then as you grow, you end up as the founder hiring people and finding people to kind of do all of the roles and teaching and training and traveling, and you kind of miss out on doing what you get to do of why you started the company. And so last week I went and filmed at Canterbury Court here in Atlanta, a life plan community in Buckhead, and it's just the constant reminder of, like, oh, this is why we do this. You sit down. We went to their dog park, and I'm filming these residents, the happiest 80 and 90-year-olds sitting there with their dogs, talking about, like, how their world just got flipped upside down when they moved in, and how they didn't realize that there were places like Canterbury Court that existed. And that's the story that we hear over and over and over again, the I wish I would have moved in sooner line that everybody hears and wants to share. It's true. It really is.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to hear a little bit. I always love the founder story, right? Because when people come, it's not easy, right, to start a business. Startup is not for sissies. It's a lot of it's just a lot of hard work. And for you, as I looked at your background, I see faith, football, and technology. So tell us a little bit about each of those parts of your life, and really what led you to building Dash Media.
Yeah. So my parents were both teachers. My dad was a football coach since I was 5 years old. For as early as I can remember, I was out on the practice field with my dad, just studying the game of football. And everything that he did with football, his whole purpose was to influence and help high school and middle school students see Jesus. I mean, that was his kind of like life's purpose, was to coach football at a high level, to help kids not only just become better football players, but better young men. And so that was my influence my whole life. When I was 18, I went to Young Life camp. Young Life became a big part of my life. They call it the church for unchurched kids. But I went and found out you could have a relationship with the creator of the universe, and decided that's what I was going to really devote my life to. And so fast forward like 3 or 4 years later, I actually was coaching football at the University of Georgia. I was the guy that was kind of the play call signaler on the sideline. We had,
Yeah.
all those like sign languages. And in the summer times, I actually took a month away and would go volunteer at Young Life camps. I did that 3 summers in a row. One summer I was a mountain bike guide. Another summer I was a morning cook. We cooked pancakes for 700 campers. That was fun. And then the other one, I was a videographer. So I had no video experience, and I shadowed this guy named Blake Anderson. And he taught me everything I know about video, filming, editing, all of that. So I didn't touch video or anything for, 8 years. And when COVID happened in 2020, I was working at It's Never Too Late. Now it's called LifeLoop. And a lot of our customers were taking all these photos and videos from their phone, and so I would download their photos and videos from their Facebook and then put really cool videos together and send it to them as their sales guy. And so I was relearning all my video and starting to film some stuff on my own. And at the same time, I had created an Instagram account called Senior Living Stories in 2017. And that was just to change what my friends thought about what I did for a living. I had switched from coaching football to working at IN2L at the time. And I wanted to change what my friends thought about what I did for a living. Wanted people to think that senior living was cool and not just this old, scary place.
Yep.
And so when both of these things were happening, as I was relearning video and video editing, I was building this account called Senior Living Stories to 10,000 plus followers at the time. And so I was asking these results were amazing on Senior Living Stories, but when you went around and looked at a lot of the organic social media that senior living companies were having, and it wasn't great. They weren't getting the same results. They needed help. And the solution was it's difficult to film, relying on activities directors to send in footage. And so it just felt like there was this super niche need of helping senior living communities tell their stories better that I thought that Dash could solve. And so in January of 2022, I said, I'm going to give myself 3 months to see if I can pay my mortgage with what I make from Dash.
Yeah.
And we were able to, and then it was just, taking it a month at a time, trusting the Lord's plans. And now we work with close to 25 operators all around the country. We make about 90 to 100 videos a week, and we've reached 400 million people, or have had 400 million organic views on social media in our first 3.5 years. So we're super pumped, excited, and just thankful that we get to do, I get to do what I love for a living.
That's right. And it is cool.
Yeah, and it is. That is the one thing is I had a friend yesterday, they said, my mother-in-law or my girlfriend's mom sent me one of your videos, not knowing it was you, telling me that, giving some advice from one of these senior living residents. So that happens more often now as people kind of pick fun at me and about the inspiration they get from the videos we share.
I feel like we're beginning to turn a corner where, people are changing perception, even in the general media. I was watching a CBS Sunday Morning, and they had this whole thing about how people were living these amazing lives at over 80 years old. So that's a major network. They had a whole thing on grandfluencers and all of these grandmas that, are sharing advice and cooking tips and all these things to a young audience that just really wants that kind of connection. And then I went to a Rod Stewart concert, and he's 80 years old, and he is up there. He's sounding amazing. He is moving. So it's like, how do we really change that perception? And the boomers are going to change it, right? Mm-hmm. They're going to come in and put their own flavor on this whole experience of aging.
Yep, totally agree with you. I mean, I think that we live in such a, everywhere you look, there's an advertisement. And so I think as the consumer, we're starting to get really smart about when we're being sold to and, when it's something that's real and authentic. And I think senior living a gold mine of authentic, real stories that don't feel like you're being sold to, but tell the story of senior living so perfectly. And that is that life isn't over just because you're 80 something years old. Like I had a lady tell me last week, she said, it feels like my life began again when I moved here. And that's the story you hear
Wow.
over and over again. And you don't have to force that message out there. You just need to give a microphone to your residents.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about the power of storytelling. When you approach a project and somebody hires you to come in for a shoot, and it's probably a mix of video and photography, I would think, are there specific messages or stories or storyboards? Is there a planning session in advance where you're trying to find these kind of core messages?
Yeah, and I'll touch on, we can dive into some of the details in a bit too, but our whole goal with you have to look at shoots very differently. If you're shooting for a website video or a brand video, that's your classic like 3 to 5 minute video, there's very specific messaging, there's very specific looks, there's very specific B-roll, and so the planning looks completely different than a social media shoot. Because you're looking on a website video, you want A plus quality with A plus content and very specific words being said. Whereas social, you're looking for A plus quality in terms of storytelling, but you really need like B to B plus quality in terms of like lighting and just everything looking flawless and perfect. It almost needs to look a little amateur. It's really important to have good audio and it's really important to have good lighting. But if it's a little shaky or it's cuts a little bit weird, that's people trust it more on social media. It doesn't need to look like a commercial. And so when we attack a social media shoot, we're looking at how do we maximize our time? We have 2 days here every 4 to 6 months. How do we maximize our time where we're getting as many of these amazing stories as possible? And if you're hauling around, all this lighting equipment and multiple angles, you really can't film that many stories in a day. But if you're more bootstrapped and lightweight as far as your equipment goes for social, you can really move around. So we've done about 100 plus shoots at this point. And so we have a filming schedule template that we fill out that with our clients. So that's the extent of the planning. Some clients are more specific about questions that they want us to ask. What I think about when I lay down at night is what questions would I ask a 90-year-old if I were sitting in front of them. And so I have a running list that I've started 4 years ago. Anytime I hear a good question, I write it down. So we have about 500 to 600 questions that our videographers will all ask, in different times. But the most important thing for us is just, in the beginning of Dash, I hired a videographer, talented wedding videographer, went and shot for us, but he could care less about talking to a senior and listening to their story. And we didn't use a single second of that footage because it was forced. It just didn't feel real. And so our biggest motto or strategy is hiring for the heart, and the talent is pretty easy to find. It's the heart mixed with the talent that's so important. And so every single person that goes and films with Dash really has a heart for the stories. And when you have a heart for the stories and a curiosity for of the person's life that you're sitting across from, the content really just comes out naturally.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting this budget season when we're filming this, right? So we're always with our clients around, what are we going to do for next year and what's the strategy and how are we going to allocate budget? And every single time we are begging for more content. We are begging for, let's make this year we're not going to buy any stock photography. Like, let's just stop that. Let's get authentic video and your real residents. And it's just so hard. And I think that what you just said is probably the reason why it's so hard. If people try on their own, they're like, okay, I'm going to go and I'm just going to make this the year that I'm going to go and do that. where are they going to find the person with the heart and the talent who's local, who knows the industry, who's going to help them storyboard or come up with those questions that are going to extract those wonderful heartwarming nuggets that we know are going to be so relatable to prospects who are struggling to make this decision. So, it's interesting that you've kind of figured a way to scale it, because that's really been the hard part, is how do we package all of that? I'm sure that the brands are always asking the communities, can't you just kind of take out your iPhone and just go and talk to residents? But they don't, even if we give them a tool to do at the community level. So I think a lot of people thought that some of those types of products that you could put on your phone would be the way to make it affordable and accessible, but then people just didn't execute to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it all comes down to the labor side. Like, somebody's got to do it, and somebody's got to edit it, and somebody's got to approve it, and somebody's got to film it. And so for us, how do you make it affordable? How do you, like you said, scale this? How do you keep it going? One, to be successful on social media and content in general, you need consistency. You need to produce a lot of it, and you need to produce it every single week. And so, I talked about the importance of the filming schedule and the day of, but where we actually in our first 2 years were wasting a lot of opportunities, we were filming too much and we weren't getting into the meat of some of the interviews. And so what we did, it kind of took me back to my football days. When I was coaching football at Georgia, every single play that we watched in football, we had 20 columns that we would fill out information about that play. And the reason why, 2 years down the road, if coach said, hey, pull all the third down passes that went 7 yards, we could do that in 5 seconds and have no problem. So to take that same philosophy, we were struggling with not only editing about 30% of the content that we were filming, and we couldn't find, which piece did we edit, which interview did we get enough from that one. So we built a whole database that every single shoot, every single interview, every single activity, anything that we film has 12 columns that the videographer fills out. And so we're able to actually, talking about affordable, if you don't have to film as much and you can make a lot more content, you're saving a ton of money by not having to pay for travel to come out and film and videographer's time and still getting those stories. So we film a lot, but then we organize the footage in a way that it'll last you, and you'll get 150 videos from 2 days of filming with us and not have to, it doesn't take any of your team's time, doesn't take away anybody's time of planning another shoot, because you did so good at that, in the planning and the organizing of the original shoot. And I just don't think it's taken us 3.5 years to kind of get where we are in that whole process. And it's so specific to senior living. I think it would be very, very, very difficult to find a local videographer that can do that whole process, even the review process. Our first year, we did all of our reviews and feedback and revisions through email. Now it's like directly on the video. It takes 5 seconds. You click approved or rejected or approved with changes, and it's done. And it's just, it takes a lot of time to figure that process out. And so I think you can find somebody cheaper to do it locally, but I think as far as the results that you'll get from that and the time that you'll have to spend on getting a couple of weeks worth of footage, I don't know if it's always the best route to go.
Yeah. Well, I can't get through an interview without bringing up AI, because everybody's talking about it.
Yeah.
And we've certainly, experimented and found, 7 fingers and really bizarrely elongated faces, interesting clothing choices and all of that. But how is content creation kind of changing with AI? And I guess, how can brands differentiate through authenticity?
Yeah. I just think AI has made it where anybody can create kind of your static graphics. Like, I'm not a digital graphics designer, but because of ChatGPT, I can make some really creative things now. Like I like merging like popular magazines with like ideas. Like, you know,
Yeah.
my friend made Sports Illustrated and ChatGPT makes it in 5 seconds. So things
Yeah.
like that, I just think are going to flood social media. And when there's too much of one thing on social media, like graphics, in senior living, it's like holiday graphics, long testimonial slides, stock images that link to blogs. Like when it becomes too easy to create, like blogs being able to be created with AI, and I love reading someone's real blog, but I
Hmm.
hate when I can see that it's AI in the first paragraph. And so I think that AI is going to help us be more efficient with creating authentic content, but it shouldn't be the content. It shouldn't be,
Right.
create me a graphic with my branding and then I'm checking the box for social media that week. And what we're looking at AI in terms of and keeping a pulse on it is like, can it help us be more efficient to lower cost of video editing? That's not quite there. There are some solutions, but it's really clunky and not great. But I think in 5 years, yeah, it could really help
Hmm.
with social media or video editing. It can help with writing to some degree, but again, I still think there's a voice to every brand, and you want to make sure you don't get too married to AI. So I think the biggest thing that it's done though is it's wiping out this like static image of stock photos or graphics on social media because people just don't want to see it. They want to know it's real. And as we get more and more experience consuming AI, I think that that's just going to become more and more true.
Yeah, I do think authenticity is going to win. It's going to be a brand differentiator, and people are getting more savvy to understanding what's real and what's not.
Yeah, would you say that AI for you? Because I mean, you're the like you've seen kind of a big transition in senior living. Would you say AI has been the biggest change from a marketing world in terms of like, we've gone through social media, we've gone through
Yeah.
digital. What would you say AI is kind of the most challenging one or the biggest change?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably going from, in senior living specifically, going from traditional marketing to digital marketing, that was a huge shift.
Mhm.
And COVID really accelerated the adoption because all the things that traditional marketing, all the strategies for that kind of became irrelevant with COVID. And so people who didn't have a digital presence had to figure that out really quickly. But I think the industry has worked through that, and now we have AI, and it is it's a huge opportunity, and somewhat a danger as well. It all depends how you use it, like everything else. You can use it for good, and
Yeah.
you can use it to kind of get lazy and do things in a cookie cutter way. So I think people have to be super intentional, about how to use it. So we still write blogs with human beings.
Yeah.
To your point, the storytelling and the originality is just really important, but it can do great things about, keyword research and, give me 10 blog titles that are, keyword enriched and what are people searching for in this market. It can do a lot of good, but it can never replace, the human touch and voice, and certainly, not what you're doing
Yeah.
in
The,
the
the number one
storytelling.
thing the number one thing is done for us, uh, as you were saying that, is actually from the coding side. Shauna Kovac, our VP of operations, we have like 22 sheets of data on the video that like have video posts, information about the video proofs, information about the social media, that she has basically used AI and ChatGPT and Claude to write code to combine all of these for reporting. And what it's done is automated and a lot of the review process and the data reporting process that normally would take days and weeks to produce for us. And it took her like, a year and a half, 2 years, but AI, she did not know how to write code, and AI taught her how to do all of those things. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's transformational. And now
Yeah.
with ChatGPT 5 out, it stopped making stuff up. So even better. Yay.
Yep. Crazy.
So since you're talking about kind of data, what does your data tell you about what is the content that people are most engaged with? And is there a difference between the lead gen type data and more of the brand awareness, social media type data?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So on the organic video side, it's really hard to tie an organic piece of content back to this person just toured our community or this person just moved in. It's rare that someone is reaching out that way about senior living. Usually they'll discover you and then go to your website. So, but on the brand awareness, organic reach, you know, we break every video down into is it a story? So anything that's unrelated to the community. Is it a testimonial community? You know, a traditional related to the community. Is it a hybrid? So I wake up every day and box and I get super excited and moved in and I was able to keep doing that. That's kind of a hybrid. Or an activity. So, you know, are we showing B-roll with an activity that's going on? And so we break every piece of content that we post into those 4 categories. Stories get 10 times the views as the other 3. Hybrid is is second. I think stories in 2024 was around 11,000 views a post. And that's not like, it's because there's so many viral posts that from the stories in, it's more of a I don't know if this is the right way to say it, high volatility. Like there's a big range in there. The activities content's the worst. I think we're getting a little bit better at telling the activities content. If there's not a talking head, it just doesn't really perform that well on social media. And so we've started interviewing people that before or after the activities, and it's made the numbers better. But we're looking, you know, in terms of the specific analytics, views, shares, saves, and engagement are the top 4 metrics. Shares and saves definitely. If you listen to the CEO of Instagram, I mean, their business is all about getting eyeballs onto their app. And so if you're sharing it with a friend, you're getting more eyeballs on their app. So they're going to show that video to more people. So that's one thing that we're really studying is how do we make more shareable content, because it ends up having more views, more saves, more engagement. Following culture, you've heard, I've heard this a ton over the last 6 months. Follower culture is kind of dying down. People just don't follow like they used to. I have a lot of accounts that I don't follow but show up in my feed every day because I like their videos. And I think senior living is still stuck on like that being the number 1 metric is how many followers we have. But if you have a million followers and you're getting 1,000 views on your post, or you have 1,000 followers and you're getting 100,000 views on every post, give me the 1,000 followers with 100,000 views. The whole point of this is to get people's attention on your brand. And so we look at things like, you know, from an editing side, watch time, full video view rate. So like what percentage of people watch the whole video? You know, a good number for that's like 20 to 25%. So, you know, studying the analytics of are people actually watching this? And if they're not, what point are they leaving this video? I think all of that kind of goes into the overall goal of how do we get more people to know about who we are and what we do.
Yeah, and I have 3 follow-ups on that because you said so many great things in that one answer. Number 1 is it was interesting that rubrics data, you know, which really tells a lot about the different perception of adult children versus older adults in terms of why they're considering senior living, what's most important to them, how they go about, you know, choosing the right community. And they're completely opposite. Like even though everyone's trying to get to the same place, the adult children are taking a completely different path than the older adults themselves. But the one thing that they all agree on, and this is the only data point that was identical, was that 56% of them said that it would be easier for them to make a decision to move into a community if they could just understand the day in the life of what it would be like to live in that community. It's the only thing they agreed on. And so I'd love to hear your perspective. You touched on it a little bit, like I'm sure the stories are a part of it, but it's not really about the activities. So what is it that's authentic about how can we position that experience, a day in the life experience, in a way that, is really relevant to both of those audiences?
Yeah. I mean, I think about my dad, if I am, whenever he would need a senior living community, or my mom, if I go to a senior living communities page and they have residents who talked about being teachers, and they have residents that talk about how Tuesday night chapel, like they had at Canterbury Court, is so meaningful to them, and how it's helped them connect people for game nights, and how they never go to a breakfast and sit alone, and how they enjoy, like, that's the place that I'm choosing. I'm like, I can start seeing my dad is just like these people. He would love this. Whereas if I go to the page and it's not that, and it's, blurry photos of like someone in a mask that's like being shown like playing bingo once every month, it's not gonna do it for me in 2025, and that is that becomes a deal breaker. It maybe not consciously, but subconsciously, I'm like, this is what he thinks senior living looks like, and I know he won't buy into it. But if it's the opposite, if he sees the things that he can relate to, he's going to want to go there. So it's the same thing with jobs too. If you go to TikTok and look at day in a life as a CNA, you'll see all kinds of content of CNAs that love their job. And people, in August of 2023, TikTok passed Google as the #1 search engine for Gen Z. And so as they're looking for jobs, they want to see day in the life of whatever job they're applying for. So I think that we really have to lean into it. Right now, it's still a differentiator, but I think in 3 or 4 years, it's going to be kind of a checkbox of saying, if they don't have this, it's just getting knocked off my list as a place that would be good for mom or dad.
So let's talk a little bit about channels, right? Historically, it's been predominantly Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Some people dabble in Instagram or TikTok, but from a lead gen kind of attracting or awareness campaigns or brand campaigns, is that shifting at all?
Yeah, I mean, if the primary goal is to attract people who want to live and work in your communities, you need to be everywhere, because there's attention everywhere. And what we look at and what we see all the time is one quarter Facebook numbers are off the charts, the next month YouTube numbers are off the charts. They make one tweak to the algorithm and everything starts blowing up. So our philosophy is, let's just put the content that we've invested and created in on everything, and then have a funnel on each platform. Understand the platform of, on Instagram, hey, we need to have a 30-word profile description with a call to action. The call to action is the link in the bio. Where on YouTube, it's going to be the website and your company description. You can have a little bit more information. For us in 2025, YouTube has just outperformed every other platform like crazy. TikTok #2, and then Instagram and Facebook kind of flip back and forth. But I think the common, when I started Senior Living Stories, everyone said, hey, no one, no older adult is on anything but Facebook. We started a channel last June, so it's about a year old, and it's reached over 2 million people over the age of 55, and half of those are on TikTok. And so you can get all, like, there are older adults on TikTok, there are older adults on YouTube and on Instagram and on Facebook. And I think it's just important that if you have the content created, why not post it everywhere? Because you don't know what's going to resonate with which audience.
Awesome. And then in terms of like just sharing a success story, I feel like people struggle with measuring the ROI of these kinds of investments. And I don't know whether that is perceived differently in the for-profit versus the not-for-profit space. You work in both spaces and, and we do as well. And a lot of times we'll just find that the for-profit clients are really focused on lead generation, right? It's a needs base. There's a lot of churn. It's a shorter length of stay. And our not-for-profit clients are much more engaged with brand building, keeping the pipeline full, keeping wait lists engaged. And so both of these groups really need a very different kind of marketing approach. So I don't know whether you have a success story or two from each side of that around lead gen versus kind of audience building. But I'd love to hear a little bit about kind of the results you get and how do you handle that question you probably get about how do we measure the ROI or what can I expect after you do all this work for me?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So my first question back is always, well, do you think social media is important? And most everybody, I don't know any, leader in a business would say that social media isn't important over the next 5 years. And so if it's important, how do you execute? And I think the ROI for us is we are the cost, we've kind of combined these 4 people that it takes to execute a social media strategy into the price of a full-time employee. So that could be between, $50,000 and $80,000 or $90,000 a year, depending on how much content we're creating. So for us, it's, we start there. Do you think social media is important? Yes, great. Hire us. You're going to hire a full-time social media manager, and then you're going to have to go outsource and find videographers, and then they're going to have to know how to build the systems. Then you're going to have to pay all the software fees. We're paying a lot of money in software fees every month. So you're going to build that all yourself, or you can just pay the price of one, full-time employee to come do it all for you and not think about it. Don't have to pay benefits. Don't worry about PTO. So I think that's like a part of an ROI that I used to skip over because I would try to say we can produce 5 move-ins a month. I think that's the most obvious one. But then getting into the next phase of more of what you and I probably hear all the time is like, okay, how many move-ins does this actually equate to? And I would say I always start with, we separate them between organic and paid. Organic, it all starts with attention. And so there's this unwritten rule between the people who consume social media content and the people that post social media content. And it's no promotions, like no audience is hopping on social media to be sold to get a promo code and to go visit your community. They're hopping on to be inspired, educated, entertained about the things that are meaningful to them. Mm-hmm. And so our strategy isn't to sell, it's to create a ton of content that do those things that grab the attention of the people that want to work and live at your communities and almost do sprinkle promotion. So every now and then your residents, as a part of their life story, will say, we had one that got 2 million views. She said, I wake up at 3:45 in the morning every morning for my whole life. And then at the end of the video, she said, and now I get to do that here, and there's people there to do it with me. That's a sprinkle promotion. Get a lot of that kind of, content. And then after some time, you're not competing with senior living on social media. You're competing with 2 billion other people that are posting to social media. So it takes time to build that audience up, build the trust, get the algorithms to like you. But over time, we have clients that are reaching 100,000 55-plus-year-olds a month. They've been posting 4 videos a week for 3 years. Not every video does great, but every now and then a video will spike. And when that content spikes in engagement and views, you make a lot more of that kind of content. Mm-hmm. And then eventually over time you build trust. And once you've built trust, that's the prerequisite for an audience. The consumer to take the next step of going to your website, booking a tour, but you can't get them to do anything until you've built that trust. So organic is all about building the trust. The paid side is we'll start, and this is where you can get honed down on the numbers a little bit more. We take those videos, if we post 100 videos, 5 of them will do really, really well, way better than the others. We can repurpose those, target the area around a specific community, add a hook in the beginning, and then a call to action at the end, and then the dollars that you spend on paid ad just get way more engagement than if you were to do a static, stock footage image. And so we can get the price per clicks down to 25 cents a click, 25 cents a click using that strategy, as opposed to kind of blindly just putting a bunch of money into the paid static images. The numbers, people love the paid ad data a lot more than the organic, but the organic, it's hard to get good paid ad data unless the organic content is there. Because when people see ads, they come to your page and they want to see, is this ad real or not? And so I think where a lot of our customers are being successful with the ads is they can go and when you see the ad, you go to the customer's page and it's like, okay, there's 100 other stories like this. And so that trust is built.
Yeah, we just find video just makes everything perform better. So if we have a great, email campaign, kind of a cadence of emails that are going out to nurture somebody through their journey, the one that has the video in it always has a better open and click-through rate. If we're designing thank you pages and landing pages, any video on those will improve conversion. Paid ads, same thing. Google Business Profile, having videos there. I mean, sometimes people are just not creative about where to put the videos. Yep. Like, it's not just about the social media channel. It's not just about each of those. It's everything that your prospect touches throughout their decision journey. They're everywhere, and they're opening and engaging with all kinds of content. It doesn't just have to live in those social media channels. It really should live throughout your marketing strategy.
Absolutely, 100%. And I get frustrated a little bit when customers don't use their video content other places. I want to know who their digital marketing company is, because I want to say, hey, look at these 200 videos. You guys can use them however you want. Here's the data behind them. And, putting a landing page on your website, real stories from real residents. We have one operator that when you walk into their buildings, we have a montage of all, like 20 minutes, 30 different stories, 20 minutes on a loop of all families, residents, staff talking about how amazing it is to live and work there, and a QR code that takes them to follow their social media page. So you should never limit, if you're going to invest in creating a bunch of content that's authentic, good content, you should not ever look at it through the lens of, okay, social media is the only thing this is going to go on. It should go everywhere that someone is consuming your story. You should use those videos that you spend time and money on creating. You should have something there for them.
Absolutely. Well, Nathan, if people want to get in touch with you and learn more about Dash Media and how you can help, what's the best way for them to find you?
You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Nathan Jones. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, or shoot me an email, nathan@my-media.com. Dash is spelled out, and be happy to chat. Thank you.
Definitely have your information in the meeting notes, and definitely put the word "my" before Dash Media, because I didn't, and I got something I was not expecting. So it is My Dash Media. Really excited to have you on. It was a great conversation, Nathan, and thank you so much for sharing your senior living marketing perspectives.
Love it. Thank you so much, Deb.
Thank you.